In the quiet village of Elmsworth, nestled in the rolling hills of a forgotten kingdom, strange things had begun to happen. For weeks, the sky had been filled with a flickering light, a star that shone brighter than all the others. Some believed it to be a sign from the gods, while others whispered that it was an omen of a coming disaster. Astra, a young woman of 22, had always felt out of place in her village. The people of Elmsworth were simple folk, content with their lives of farming, trading, and family. But Astra was different. She felt a longing, an unexplainable pull toward the world beyond the hills. Every night, she would lie awake in her small cottage, staring at the distant stars, wondering if they too called to her. One evening, as the star blazed more brightly than ever, Astra saw something that made her blood run cold. A shadowy figure appeared in the sky, descending slowly toward the earth. It was no ordinary meteor. It was as if the heavens themselves had opened up to reveal a being, or something far older and more powerful. The villagers saw it too, and fear spread quickly through the streets. The elders gathered in secret, debating what to do. Astra, however, could not shake the feeling that this was not an omen of destruction, but a calling. The following morning, the village was abuzz with excitement and fear. The object from the sky had crashed just outside the village, deep in the forest. No one dared approach it, not even the bravest men, for fear of what might emerge. But Astra, driven by an overwhelming curiosity, knew she had to go. Against the advice of the elders, Astra ventured into the forest alone. The trees grew thick and dark, their branches twisted like the hands of the dead. As she walked deeper into the woods, she could feel the air growing heavier, charged with an energy she could not explain. Then, in a clearing, she found it, the fallen star. It was a large, shimmering stone, pulsating with a strange light. But it wasn't just a stone. It was alive. The moment Astra touched its surface, a shockwave of energy coursed through her body. She fell to her knees, her breath stolen from her as the visions began. In the brief moment before she passed out, Astra saw flashes of another world, one of fire and ice, of gods and monsters, and of a war that had been fought long before her time. She saw a woman, her face identical to Astra's, wielding immense power and calling upon the forces of the universe to stop the impending darkness. When Astra awoke, she was lying in the forest, the sun now setting. The stone was gone, and so was the mysterious energy. But the visions lingered in her mind, vivid and haunting. She felt different, changed in a way she couldn't explain. As she stood up, she realized that the forest had fallen silent. No birds, no animals, nothing moved. It was as if the entire world was holding its breath. She returned to the village, but nothing was the same. The villagers looked at her with fear, as though she had brought something upon them. The elders avoided her, speaking in hushed tones whenever she entered the room. Astra knew that something had shifted, and she was no longer just the curious girl from the village. That night, she was visited by a strange figure, a man with silver hair and eyes that glowed faintly in the dark. He introduced himself as Orion, a traveler who had been following her since the night of the falling star. "You have awakened," he said, his voice calm and knowing. "The prophecy is true. You are the one the heavens have chosen." Astra stared at him, her heart racing. "Chosen for what?" "To stop the darkness," Orion replied, his gaze darkening. "A war is coming, and you are the key to its end." Orion led Astra to a hidden cave deep within the forest, where an ancient relic lay. The walls were covered in strange symbols and carvings that seemed to shift as she looked at them. At the center of the cave was an altar, and upon it rested an old scroll. "This," Orion said, "is the prophecy of the fallen star. It foretells of a time when the balance of the world will be threatened by a dark force. The one who awakens the star will either bring about the end of the world or its salvation. You, Astra, are that person." Astra's mind spun as she unrolled the scroll, reading the ancient words. The prophecy spoke of a cosmic war between the forces of light and darkness, of a star that would fall from the sky to choose a champion. It told of a young woman who would possess the power to wield both the light and dark, to tip the scales and determine the fate of the world. "But how can I do this?" Astra asked, her voice filled with disbelief. "I don't know anything about magic or fighting. I'm just a villager." Orion smiled. "The stone has already given you the power. You must learn to harness it, to control it. The darkness grows stronger with each passing day, and you will need to be ready." Astra's training began immediately. For the next few weeks, Orion taught her how to control the energy that now flowed through her. She learned to channel the power of the fallen star, to use it to manipulate the elements and harness her newfound abilities. But as she trained, she began to experience strange occurrences, visions that came without warning, flashes of memories that weren't hers. She saw the woman from her visions, the one who looked like her, wielding a sword of pure light. She felt her presence in the back of her mind, guiding her. It was on a quiet afternoon when the first test came. Astra was practicing her control over fire, summoning flames from the tip of her fingers. But as she did, a cold wind blew through the forest, and a dark figure appeared from the shadows. It was a creature unlike anything Astra had ever seen, a massive, shadowy figure with glowing red eyes and claws like daggers. The creature lunged at her, and in a split second, Astra's instincts took over. She raised her hands, and a burst of energy shot from her palms, striking the creature and sending it flying back into the trees. Orion stepped forward, his expression grim. "You did well, but this is just the beginning. The darkness is coming for you, and you must be ready." The days passed quickly, and the world outside the forest grew darker. Astra's training intensified as she honed her skills, learning to summon light and dark energy, balancing the forces that flowed within her. But despite her growing strength, she could sense that the world around her was shifting. The air felt heavier, the winds more ominous. Orion had warned her that the darkness was gathering, but it wasn't until one fateful night that Astra fully understood the extent of the danger. As she walked through the forest, a dense fog rolled in, covering the ground in an eerie blanket. The trees seemed to bend with the weight of something unseen, and the air pulsed with an unsettling energy. Then, out of the fog, came the sound of hooves. At first, it was soft, like a distant thunder, but it grew louder. Astra's heart raced as shadows began to emerge from the mist, creatures she had never seen before. Their eyes glowed a faint red, and their movements were jerky, like puppets pulled by unseen strings. They were not natural. Astral energy surged through her as she prepared for another battle. She wasn't ready for this. These were not creatures she had been trained to fight. But they were here, and she had no choice but to face them. The shadowy figures moved closer, their eerie, guttural growls cutting through the silence of the forest. Astra stepped forward, raising her hands, preparing to defend herself with the light. But as she focused on the creatures, a sudden realization hit her. The dark energy that flowed through them was not like the darkness she had learned to control. These beings were born of something far more ancient, something evil. Their very existence was a violation of the balance between light and dark. Astra's power pulsed, but she could feel the strength of the dark energy within them beginning to overwhelm her. The first creature lunged at her with terrifying speed, its claws swiping through the air. Astra dodged just in time, but the beast's claws scraped across her arm, leaving a trail of dark energy that burned like fire. She gritted her teeth and summoned all the light she could muster. A burst of radiant energy shot from her palms, striking the creature directly and sending it stumbling back. But the attack only seemed to weaken it momentarily. More shadows emerged from the fog, circling her. Orion appeared from the mist, his face grim. "These are the Dark Ones, born from the void that threatens to swallow everything. You cannot fight them the same way you fight regular darkness. They require something stronger." The battle raged on, but Astra was tiring. Her light alone wasn't enough to defeat the Dark Ones, and her injuries were starting to slow her down. Desperation began to set in as the creatures closed in. She could hear their growls and feel the darkness creeping closer, threatening to consume her. Orion, seeing her struggle, stepped forward. "Elara, listen to me. There is another power you must learn to control. It is forbidden, but it is the only way. You must embrace the full force of both light and dark within you. Only by accepting both can you defeat them." Astra's heart skipped a beat. "But you said the balance must be maintained. I cannot give in to the darkness." Orion nodded solemnly. "The balance is fragile, but it is more than light or dark. It is about harmony. The darkness within you will not consume you if you learn to control it. You are the bridge between both forces, and you must allow them to coexist within you." With little choice, Astra closed her eyes, focusing inward. She felt the light inside her, pure and strong, but she also felt the darkness, cold and relentless. As she embraced both, she felt an overwhelming surge of energy. The forest seemed to react, the trees swaying with the power she commanded. Astra's eyes opened, now glowing with a fierce mixture of light and shadow. The Dark Ones hesitated, sensing the shift in her energy. She stepped forward, her hands raised, and a wave of energy blasted from her, a combination of both light and dark. The forest around her seemed to bend to her will as she summoned the very forces of nature. The creatures screamed, their forms flickering as the light and darkness tore at them from within. Astra stood firm, her body radiating power, yet she remained in control. She was no longer just a vessel for light, she had become the embodiment of balance. The battle between light and dark continued for what felt like hours. Astra fought with every ounce of strength, her body battered, but her will unshaken. The Dark Ones finally began to falter, their forms dissolving into nothingness, defeated by the very balance they had tried to disrupt. With a final burst of energy, the last of the shadowy creatures vanished, leaving the forest silent once more. Astra stood in the clearing, breathing heavily, but the forest was at peace again. The fog lifted, and the forest slowly began to heal. The trees, once darkened by the presence of the Dark Ones, seemed to breathe again, their leaves shimmering with new life. Astra felt the weight of the battle lift from her shoulders, but she also felt the burden of the power within her. She had embraced both light and dark, but she knew that this was not a victory that could be taken lightly. Orion approached, a look of quiet pride on his face. "You have done it, Elara. You have restored balance, but now you are the guardian of that balance." Astra nodded. She had done what needed to be done, but she also understood that her journey was far from over. The balance between light and dark was delicate, and it would always need to be protected. The forest had called to her, and now she had become its protector. But she was not alone. The forces of light and dark were now bound to her, and she would use them to safeguard the world, keeping the delicate harmony intact for as long as she could. The story of Astra, the guardian of balance, would be told for generations to come, a legend born from the clash of light and dark. And as she looked out over the forest, Astra knew that her journey had only just begun.